Hello everyone, today I will talk about self-join by using an example from LeetCode. So here I have a table. It has 4 columns. The first one is the person's ID, second one is the person's name, third one is their department, and the fourth column is the ID of the person who is their manager. So if this column here says 101, then Dan's manager has the employee ID 101, which means John is Dan's manager, and that's why John's manager ID is null because he doesn't have a manager himself. He's the manager. Same for, let's say, David. So 107 means that person with the ID 107 is David's manager, which happens to be Alice. So that is how this table is set up. And we will be using self-join. And what the question is that we want to find the names of managers who have at least 5 employees working under them. So that's the question. We want to find the name. It's either John or Alice. And from just by eyeballing, we can tell that it's John because 101 appears 5 times. And for Alice, 107, it appears 4 times. So what we want is the name of the manager, which is John, from this table. And this table is all we have. So what we'll have to use is something called a self-join. Now, this question can actually also be solved by a subquery. And it's also super simple. But what we want to do is use a self-join here. So let me open this table in Excel. So this is the exact same table. And what we want to do is we have one table. And what we do in self-join is we alias the same table as 2 different tables and then join them among themselves. So let me just copy this table. And we'll just pretend that these are 2 different tables. So we're concerned with employees and their managers. So let's say that the left table is the employees and the right table is all the managers. So what we can see here is, or actually what we will treat these tables as, that these are all the employees. So for the employee ID, whatever this is their manager, right? And this we'll treat as the managers table. So these are all managers IDs, managers names. And this then becomes manager's manager, right? And we don't really want that. We're not interested in that. And in all of these, we'll realize that the department columns are also not very useful because there's no mention of a department anywhere. So we are not interested in departments in both these tables, and we are not interested in the manager's manager ID. So we'll just kind of get rid of those columns because those are going to be meaningless for us. Trying to hide them. Okay. So this is what we're interested in. What we want to do essentially is, so let's see, we have manager ID 101 here, and the name of the manager is John. So we want to see John here, 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 and here, and here, right? And then for Bob and Catherine, David, and Eve, we want to see Alice. So that's what we want to see. And for nulls, we don't want to see anything at all. And even better if we can just not have these rows, it'll be even better. So that's what we're trying to do. And how that's going to happen is when we will join the manager ID from here to the employee ID from here. Or just ID, not employee ID, but ID. So what we want to do is from the employees table, we want to join the manager ID column to the ID column in the managers table, right? So let me do just that. So what we'll do is we'll use the same table, alias them as E and M, which would represent employee and manager, and then join this column here with this column here, right? So let's do that. So the first table I'm going to alias as employee and keep it on the left. And I'm actually going to do inner join, and I'll maybe discuss the reason here why. And then just take the same table and alias it as M for manager. And what are we joining on is from the left table, we are joining on manager ID. And on the right, we are joining it on ID, right? So let's see. So from the left table, we need manager ID. From the right table, we want just ID. So left table is E, so manager ID, and right table is manager, so just the ID. That's what we're doing. So now that the join is done, let's see what columns we will need from here or what we need to see. So what we can do is we can select the ID here from the left table, which will represent the employee ID, and we can get both these columns from the right, which will be the manager ID for this employee and the manager name for this employee. So we can select these 3 columns, right? So let me specify those. So we want EID, and I'm going to alias this as EID so that we can know that this is the employee ID. And then we'll do m.id as MID, which means it's going to be the manager ID. And then we want the name. I'm going to say mname. So let's run this query now. So what we can see is that the employee ID, the person with employee ID 102, their manager is 101, and their name is John. So the question says we have to find the name of the manager who has at least 5 employees working under them. So essentially this problem has now kind of boiled down to just this column. What we want to do is, so we have all the employees here on the left, and we have the name of the manager in this column here, mname, right? So we can just count how many times each name appears, and if it happens to be greater than or equal to 5, we just want to display that name. So that's all we have to do. And we're using an inner join because what inner join will do is any rows with these values, nulls, they're just going to disappear. It's not going to join on them. So we'll not have to deal with nulls. So we can also use a left join here, but the query will be slightly different. We'll have to handle nulls. And in a self join, you use a inner join or left join. That totally depends on what the question is asking of you. In this case, we can get by using an inner join because we don't want to see these rows with nulls. So I'm using that. So okay, so back to this one. So we're just using the mname column here, trying to count each distinct name, the occurrence of each distinct name, and if it is greater than or equal to 5, then we just display that name. So we are interested, actually, let me just copy this and paste it and go from here. So what we need is just the name. We just want the name, but what we want to do is we want to group by the name and then also count and see if it is greater than or equal to 5. So I'm just going to group it by name. And what we want is that the count of that name should be greater than or equal to 5. We can run that query and we'll see we get John here. So that's how you do a self join.